Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Let's Get Racing, the third episode of a motorsports show created and hosted by me, Julian Quintero Verano. This week, we will be covering a triple header across all three major motorsports, being Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR. That being said, it's not as flashy as last week's triple header. It's not going to be the glitz and glamour of Monaco. It's not going to be the prestige and honor that is the Indy 500 and IndyCar, and it's not going to be the Coke 600, the tenacious 600-mile race that we see in NASCAR. Regardless, though, it is three races that are going to be absolutely incredible. I, for one, look forward to seeing them this upcoming weekend. You definitely should mark it off June 1st for all of these races. Formula One will be visiting the circuit of Catalunya, Barcelona, for the Spanish Grand Prix. It rounds up at Formula One triple header over there, where we started off in Imola for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, followed by the Monaco Grand Prix. Now, we're wrapping it up in Barcelona. There's been track changes. We have a couple news on the grid in terms of car regulation. That, in my own predictions, will be coming soon in this one. Meanwhile, IndyCar, they are traveling to Detroit. Now, Detroit usually raced on the Belle Isle version of the circuit. This time, it's just the city streets of Detroit. IndyCar will be going there for the third iteration on this outline. We'll talk a bit about Scott McLaughlin following his crash and a little bit of a run-in that he had with Kyle Larson. Talk a little bit about the engineering shakeup that we're seeing at Dale Coyne Racing, and we're also going to be talking quite literally about the most dominant start to an IndyCar season, Alex Palou. Are you kidding me? His season has been phenomenal. Can he keep it up here in Detroit? More of that and more in the IndyCar section. And lastly, in our NASCAR section, we're going to be sitting here and talking about, well, this wonderful racetrack that is the Nashville Superspeedway. It isn't the size of a standard superspeedway. It's only 1.33 miles long, but it's the fifth ever race here. Last time we were here was 5 overtime race won by Joey Logano, and there's a bunch of cars still looking for their first wins on the season to try to clinch themselves into the chase. All that and more on this week's episode. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's just get straight into it and talk Formula One, talk Barcelona. And it's been a very interesting turn of events here with two major pieces of information heading into the weekend. The first one being the change of the track itself. Now, back in the early 2000s, mid-2000s I believe it was, the Circuit of Catalunya, to try to help out with driver safety, added a chicane right before the final corner of the track. Now, this did lower the speeds of the cars. It did allow for them to fall a bit closely into that section, but with these cars getting bigger and bigger, dirty air becoming more of a factor in everything, and the fact that DRS has become a very crucial aspect of overtaking, a lot of cars aren't able to get the runs out of the final corner in previous seasons due to this chicane. This season, though, they're removing the final chicane. It's going to be fun. We're going to be seeing so much speed coming out of that final corner. I can expect, one, a new track record to be set here at Barcelona. I think we can definitely be seeing that end up happening. Maybe the likes of Lando Norris, maybe the likes of Verstappen, maybe the likes of any other car. Who knows? But this weekend is going to be very fun when it comes to general speed coming out of that corner. Expect a lot more potential overtakes into turn one, maybe a bit more speed heading out of that final corner, maybe some people getting held up in qualifying due to trying to get a run out of the final turn. So who knows where it ends up going in that aspect. But if you were to ask me, I think the change to the circuit itself is a very nice change. I think it's going to be something that is going to contribute to the racing. Formula One has been having a lot of issues, as we've mentioned last week with Iran and Monaco, that the cars are getting too big. It's becoming harder to follow. We're not seeing the overtakes as often. And, Barcelona has a very twisty early section, an S coming into turn 1 and 2, followed by a long turn 3. And we've seen a lot of overtakes there, so imagine the amount of speed you can carry into that section coming down the front stretch. And this back removal of the chicane is definitely going to be leading to that change. So I personally am looking forward to the track changes in Barcelona. We'll see where that ends up taking them moving forward. Another major change is a regulation change. Flexi wings were a big topic of discussion towards the end of last season. McLaren had wings that were considered to be too flexible in comparison to the regulation. A lot of teams, specifically Red Bull and Ferrari, raised concerns, and they reported it all the way back to the 2024 Italian Grand Prix. However, Formula One came in and they announced, you know what, we're going to allow this regulation to stay because they're technically not breaking the rules. The flexi wings were up to par and were regulation, but they did say that they're going to be adding significantly stiffer regulations to it, expecting less flexible wings by the 2025 Spanish Grand Prix, which is this weekend. So according to a lot of teams, they've had it circled leading up to here. They had more stiff components set up compared to the flexible ones. They made more flexible ones to compete with McLaren in the meantime, but now we're expecting these cars with firmer wings, both in the front and the back, to really be able to get it going. So what does this mean for the cars itself? I don't know if we're going to be seeing a lot of changes in terms of the aerodynamics. I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of changes in terms of potential dirty air, but it will allow for cars to probably have less of a boost down the straights. Big aspect of the flexi wing was the fact that the way the McLaren had it set up, it essentially operated as a, quote, mini DRS. And so having that removed, we'll definitely be able to see how much this affects the teams in straight line speed. For all we know, these teams have already made these adjustments heading into this weekend, have already gotten the car used to it, and we're not going to be seeing any significant changes. I think that is a big aspect that we need to consider. Maybe these changes won't end up happening. But McLaren slated to be a team that is most affected. Ferrari had a change on the wings. Heading into the season, they might return to last season's wings, and that was a really, really good car for them, so who knows if that improves their performance. So we'll see what this means for the quality of racing, what this means for the racing potentially moving forward this weekend, but I think it might have some title implications depending on how well these teams adjusted. It might not be significant, but it might be everything needed to turn this championship race on its head. Speaking of the championship race, Norris trails Oscar Piastri in the championship by 3 points. It's a really, really close fight towards the top end of the Formula One standings. And it's been very interesting to see this McLaren spat between them. They've both been fantastic. Piastri at 161 points, Norris at 158. 3-point difference. They both have 7 podiums to start off this season. So they have 7 podiums in 8 races, which is nuts. And then you look at the third place car, and it's Max Verstappen. He is 136 points. He is, if I'm doing the mental math here correctly, he's 22 points behind Norris, 25 points behind Piastri. So a terrible weekend for McLaren with a Verstappen win. We can see Verstappen hop right back into that championship race. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for these cars. The top 3 still right there. This advantage can be split, can be caught up in no time, it seems. So we'll see what that ends up entailing for these teams. In other news, George Russell, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, Antonelli, they're all looking to try to step up this weekend, secure some good points, especially the Mercedes cars. They had a terrible, terrible race this past weekend in Monaco. They're going to definitely try to fix that moving forward. Russell's been very consistent this season. He might be able to hop back into a podium place. He ran well in Barcelona in years past, so we'll see what that ends up entailing for him. Antonelli, we have no idea what he's going to do in this racetrack, but he's definitely going to want to bounce back from a P18 in Monaco, so that's going to be fun to see. Based off of previous knowledge of everything, this is a Red Bull track. One race was won last year by Max Verstappen. He ended up winning it over Lando Norris. Lando Norris finished 2 seconds behind Max Verstappen. He started on pole in the race. So, classic, Lando Norris bottling things. Is he going to be able to hold on from pole? That's always a big talking point when it comes to him. And if you ask me, that's going to be a big aspect heading into this weekend. Is he going to be able to really hold on following a good qualifying? He held on in Monaco. Granted, Monaco's an insanely hard track to pass, but Barcelona historically isn't exactly a track known for its overtaking. So we'll see how much the change of the final chicane, the removal of the final chicane, affects the racing. But in the end, we should still be expecting Red Bull to be pretty good this weekend. I think that's going to be a good little mention. So without further ado, let's head into the actual predictions for this weekend. I think the pole winner is going to be Max Verstappen. He's been fantastic this season. He's pulled out some miracles to put the car on pole. And I think this weekend he's going to be able to do just that again. That Red Bull is fantastic in these sort of big downforce tracks. They tend to get the results when needed. And in my opinion, that really does help them out significantly for this qualifying. I also think maybe Yuki Tsunoda's able to get a good race in here under his belt. We know that Red Bull has been an absolute heartache to try to wrangle. But Tsunoda's starting to get the hang of it. Poor weekend, mainly due to traffic in Monaco, but he showed pace. He's showing that he can definitely keep up with these cars now, and maybe we're going to start seeing him fighting with the Mercedes, fighting with the Ferraris. That is obviously the hopes for Red Bull, and I think Tsunoda is going to be able to do that this weekend. Definitely is a big talking point for him. I expect him to make Q3 without a problem, and I know it's a Red Bull car, and you should be saying, "Oh, but Julian, these cars are meant to be towards the front. It's a Red Bull. He should not be floundering towards the bottom of the field." And yeah, that is true. But I think Yuki Tsunoda is finally going to get it all together, get it sorted, and he's going to be all right. In terms of race winner, though, Verstappen's on pole. I think the Red Bulls are good. But I have to go with Lando Norris for the race win. He has all the momentum from this triple header. Had a great Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Had a fantastic race win in Monaco. And I think he's going to start probably P2, maybe P3. Get a great launch on Verstappen to start off this race. And he's going to probably beat him in the pit strategy. This McLaren team's been phenomenal in the pits. They seem to be the fastest car on the grid. And I think that Lando's going to just be able to keep that up. He's going to maintain that entirely. And I look forward to see what he does. But I think he's going to host the trophy here in Barcelona and wrap up this triple header heading into a minor break with the championship lead and 2 wins on the trot. For a good surprise, I think I'm going to go with Fernando Alonso. He has been due. We talked about it last time out. He is, quote, the most unlucky driver ever, and you can look at his career and talk about that. But right now in his stint with Aston Martin, he has been struggling quite a bit. It has not been ideal for him, and he's definitely hoping to try to get back into it. He's looking to see if that ends up being a good point for him. But we know that Aston, in the hands of Fernando Alonso, can score some points. Fernando hasn't scored any points yet, and a lot of that has come down to engine failures, aspects way out of his control. We saw in Monaco he was running P5, P6, and the engine gave out on him, which is an absolute travesty. But if you ask me, I think this is finally the weekend in front of home crowd that Fernando Alonso scores the points. It's heading into a break. They need it for momentum's sake. And I know that Fernando's really going to want it. I know that this Aston Martin team is really going to want it. And especially in Spain, Fernando Alonso, 2-time winner here, is going to want to give it his all in front of the home crowd. So I think my good surprise this weekend, expect Fernando Alonso to score some points. Bad surprise, I think, is going to be Oscar Piastri. Not in terms of I think he's going to finish outside the points and he's going to have a terrible one, but I think he's going to finish probably 5th, 6th. I think he's going to struggle a bit. I don't know if they're going to get on the optimal strategy. Obviously, this is way early, but I have a feeling that Piastri is just going to lounge a bit. He's not going to be able to strike as highly as Verstappen, as highly as Norris, and I think the points gap is just going to close significantly more. Piastri in previous years, a 5th, 6th isn't exactly a bad finish by any means. But this season, when you have the best car and Max Verstappen still being Max Verstappen, I think it's going to be a weekend where Oscar kind of slips a little bit, and we see that he's human. He's still very young, and we can see that he's still hunting for that first championship, and we're going to be seeing that inexperience, so to say, affect him this weekend. I don't think it's going to affect him in the long term this season. I think that he's a very composed driver. I think he's going to be able to rattle it off heading into this break, but I do think that he's going to be struggling heading into this weekend. I think he's not going to be the lead McLaren. I don't think he's going to even finish on the podium. So, bad surprise this week. I'm going to say it's Oscar Piastri. And lastly, I want to talk a little bit about rumors that I've been seeing, and it's about the new Formula One team that we're going to be seeing next season, Cadillac Formula One team. They're going to be joining the grid, and they had a bit of a showing out in Miami. They showed off the car, and everyone was like, wow, it's so beautiful and whatever. They're going to be having Ferrari engines for the first season before the engine regulation change, where they can bring in their own power units, Cadillac power units, which I think is going to be really interesting, bring in some more American power. Granted, we're going to be seeing Ford on as well with their partnership with Red Bull Powertrains. So, we're seeing a lot more American involvement. I know Liberty Media is absolutely loving that. They're gushing all over themselves for it. But I think they're going to definitely do a really, really good job in that department. But Cadillac has had rumors in terms of who's going to be stepping into the seat for them. There were heavy rumors that Colton Herta might be the driver in there to bring in an American, but more rulings have come out recently that Colton Herta is out of the running for the position. So it doesn't seem like Colton Herta making that jump to Formula One. We look over at other big rumors, and the two biggest ones that I've seen is Checo Perez returning to the grid, racing for this new Cadillac team alongside Guan Yu Zhou. And I think Guan Yu Zhou is a phenomenal driver. I think Checo Perez is a great driver. As much as I would love to see that driver pairing, I don't think it's the best move for Cadillac moving forward. Checo, as much as I love him, he is on the older side. He was on a regressing season, and maybe this is a season where he bounces back. But I don't think that he's going to be ideal for this Cadillac operation moving forward. I think he's going to struggle. And, he brings in a lot of money for sponsorships and whatnot, but do you really want a stopgap like that early in the car development phase? Maybe you do. Brings in that revenue, brings in that financial stability, but I don't know. Guan Yu Zhou also brings in financial stability. He's a lot younger, showed a lot more promise this past season. Granted, in a Sauber that wasn't great. So, I'm a bit wishy-washy on the Cadillac rumors, but one thing that could potentially be is Alex Palou, and we'll talk more about Alex Palou in the IndyCar segment based off his dominance, but Carlos Sainz in an interview came out and said that he believes his buddy, his Spanish compatriot, Alex Palou, deserves a seat in Formula One if he wants one. So Alex Palou, it doesn't seem like he's going to want to make the jump over to Formula One. He's come out and said that he's very, very happy in IndyCar. He just won the Indy 500. He doesn't see a reason to jump over. But maybe he decides to make the jump. And being the face of North American open-wheel racing, Cadillac really wants to dip into that market. I think that they should try to make a play for Alex Palou to partner whoever they want. And yeah, Checo and Guan Yu, I think Zhou is a fantastic option. I think Perez is a good driver as well. But Perez is older. Zhou is not going to be a championship-level driver. And, I just see both of them as stopgaps for Cadillac while they wait for maybe a young American prospect to come through, maybe a driver to fall into their hands, the likes of maybe an Alex Albon. Maybe, I don't even know who it could be. Gabriel Bortoleto, if he falls out with Audi. Cadillac is waiting, I think, for a high-quality driver for them to pursue to come in, and they're going to try to use Checo and Zhou as stopgaps, and I just don't think that's going to be good for them in the long term. But hey, I'm just a guy sitting at home talking about racing. They're the ones with the whole operation. They've probably been planning this for a month. They've been negotiating with drivers. They know what they want to do, and they know what they want to do with sponsors. So, they definitely have the upper hand on that compared to me. But that's enough for the Formula One segment here. Head into the IndyCar portion, and we'll talk more about Alex Palou and his championship later on. But I just want to point out that he's been phenomenal, and we talked about the Cadillac rumors. He's probably not going anywhere. Another guy that's probably not going anywhere is Scott McLaughlin. He had a really tough race in Indy. He spun out on the formation lap, crashed out, and he was devastated. He was crying. One thing I didn't see during the race, I saw it afterwards on Twitter, I saw it afterwards just on social media, it was Kyle Larson. As he drove by, he seemed to give a thumbs up to Scott McLaughlin. A lot of people, based off of Kyle Larson's past track record, said that this was made sarcastically. It wasn't a serious gesture. It was not something that he really believed in. And it was just kind of a sarcastic, remark to Scott McLaughlin, like, congratulations, I want a clock, and you spun out. Other people just thought, he was just checking if he was okay, and that's that. Kyle Larson came out, and he apologized to Scott McLaughlin about it. McLaughlin said in a couple interviews, he came and said, hey, it is what it is with Kyle. He apologized. It's all water under the bridge. It's not a big deal. And I wanted to cover this because, we see these things and we spin it however we want within the media. In the end, these drivers are fine with each other. Kyle Larson and Scott McLaughlin don't race in any single other race together apart from the Indy 500. Maybe they'll never race against each other again, but they still felt the need to have one apologize. The other one was feeling the need to mention, hey, we cleared the air. It is what it is. And that's that, and I really hope that this just kind of ends up being a story from the end of the weekend. We just kind of throw it under, leave it, and we just kind of forget about it, So who knows where it ends up going, but I think Scott McLaughlin has bigger fish to fry. Kyle Larson has bigger fish to fry, and a thumbs up can be taken in many ways, but I don't think any of them really took it as seriously as a lot of people made it out to be on the media. So, definitely don't don't take it as seriously as a lot of people were taking it. Another big piece of information was a big of an engineering shakeup. Head engineer for Rinus VK and Jacob Abel have been put in. Michael Cannon and Mike Colliver both return to Dale Coyne. This could be an improvement for Rinus VK and Jacob Abel, especially for Jacob Abel. He's a rookie, so he's been struggling a bit this year. He failed to make the Indy 500, which you can tell he was heartbroken about, but he's going to do everything he can to try to stay relevant. He's not in a high works team. He's not racing for a Ganassi. He's not racing for a Penske. He's not racing for an Andretti, but he's still a really, really good car in Dale Coyne. It's been out here for a while in IndyCar, so we'll see how he ends up faring with a new engineer. Rinus VK, we know what he can do in a good car. Having a new engineer come in could help him out. It might not mean anything major for the championship because both these guys are attention, but hey, a bit more competitive aspect in the field is something we want to see. Let's talk about Detroit. Detroit can throw up a very, very interesting race. It's a newish format. They've been racing on the Belle Isle format of the track for a very long time. This past 2 seasons, they were racing on a new format inside the city streets of Detroit. Only 2 races have been won here. Ironically, the 2023 one was won by Alex Palou, so I can already sense people going, is this going to be another one of his weekends? 2024 was won by Scott Dixon. Palou finished, I believe it was 16th. So, there's that aspect. There's a bit of unpredictability on this track. We haven't really seen a trend apart from Ganassi being good on this track. Alex Palou leads the IndyCar Championship by 112 points. Over 2 races worth of points. Alex Palou leads over Pato O'Ward, who sits with 194 points. His teammate Christian Lundgaard with 181. They're the two fighting for P2. And at 165 points, if I recall correctly, it is Felix Rosenqvist right behind them. Maybe trying to make a stab for it. Who knows where that goes for him. But Palou has such a stranglehold on the championship. Who knows where that ends up going. One thing that I think is interesting is the fact that there's a double-sided pit lane. So there's going to be pits on both sides for these teams. I think this might cause some incidents or an issue for teams. Maybe cars get released into each other's paths. That, I think, is going to be fun to see. Obviously, they've already had 2 races here already, so maybe this isn't an issue. But a double-sided pit lane is something that is so rare. I don't think I've ever seen it anywhere else in motorsports. So to see it happen here, I think, would be such a fun aspect that is going to get overlooked by everyone. And I think that's going to be fun. One thing heading into Detroit that I found interesting as well is that Alex Palou is looking for his 6th win. Kyle Kirkwood is looking for his 2nd. And literally everyone else is looking for their 1st win of the season. So that is a big contrast to last season. Last season there were 7 drivers who finished with at least 2 wins. They were able to get 2, and this season we have such an unprecedented level of dominance from Alex Palou early on. Yes, a lot can still happen, but it's really his championship to lose. If he somehow blows this, I don't really know what else to say for him. So, fingers crossed for him, prayers, everything. Hopefully it all ends up going his way, but who knows is going to be the winner this weekend. I think it's going to be fun to see. So let's get right into qualifying and race predictions. As mentioned, Chip Ganassi, they've been the winner of the last 2 races here in Detroit. You can definitely expect them to be competitive again. Dixon's always been good. Palou is Palou. And Kiffin Simpson, who's been pretty decent this season as well as a young driver. I think Kiffin Simpson might be able to throw a little bit of surprise here and there. So maybe that will be something to keep our eyes on. Andretti and McLaren Aero, they've been pushing to make some noise. Penske, not very far, despite the drama that they had that led to the firing of Tim Cindric and the penalties that they saw in Indy. They still were very, very fast this past weekend, so who knows where that ends up going for them. But if you ask me who's going to be my prediction for pole. I think it's going to be Christian Lundgaard. He's been decent on these road courses. He's been a fantastic driver this season, very consistent. I think it's going to be the weekend that the McLarens really show off, that everybody apart from Ganassi really ends up showing off towards the front end of the grid. And I think Christian Lundgaard pulls it off with a nice lap in qualifying. I think he's going to get the pole position award in this weekend. Now for the race win, I'm going to go with Joseph Newgarden. He looked fantastic in the Indy 500. He is one of those drivers that I don't know what to say apart from he is impressive at times. He races like a dog. He absolutely puts pressure on you, and he makes sure that you need to play at his strengths, at his level. If not, you're going to get hurt. You're gonna struggle. And I think that he's gonna fight through the field. I think he's still gonna start towards the front. They're gonna get the optimum strategy on the weekend, and they're going to be able to get out front with some good pit stops. Team Penske need something this season. They need to get going, and I think Joseph Newgarden is going to be the guy to do it for him. He's going to kickstart the season for Penske and really get the ball rolling from again. Expect Joseph Newgarden, in my opinion, to be in victory lane and at the top of the podium. And I'll be honest, I don't really know what they do in IndyCar. I believe it's victory lane. Hold up, victory lane IndyCar. I want to look this up real quick. Because I'm curious. I had no idea. Sorry, I just got very distracted for this. I just want to know. It is victory lane. Okay, cool. I'm not crazy. But victory lane. Sorry, I that was a crazy tangent. Expect Joseph Newgarden to be in victory lane this upcoming weekend. In Detroit. I think he's going to be a fantastic driver, and he's going to have a great drive. For a good surprise, I think it's going to be Kiffin Simpson. Chip Ganassi's always had good cars around here, and I think this is going to finally be the weekend that we see Kiffin Simpson put it together, get a good race. Everyone's going to be preoccupied talking about Palou. Everyone's going to be preoccupied talking about Dixon. Everyone's going to be talking about everyone else who is going to be able to slide up. I think Kiffin Simpson's going to give us a really good race. He's going to finish, I think, top 5, top 10 maybe. And he's going to, demonstrate that, he's not just the third Ganassi car, but he can be someone to make some noise. Bad surprise, I'm going to go with Marcus Ericsson. Ericsson got disqualified from the Indy 500. That's obviously not great. His mental's been very affected. A lot of reports coming out to how devastated he was to not win, how devastated he was for things not to go his way. And I think that it's going to translate over here in Detroit. I think he's going to have another tough weekend in his Andretti. He's not going to be up to speed. And I can see them having a couple trouble here in Detroit. And I expect Marcus Ericsson to not be as good. So my bad surprise for this weekend, I'm going to go with Marcus Ericsson. So with that being said, for the IndyCar portion, let's head real quickly into the NASCAR portion. Talk quickly about this weekend. So as mentioned, it's 1.33 mile track in Nashville. It's had 5 races here ever. And it's been action-packed. We've seen a lot of action throughout these past races in Nashville. It's thrown up always a fun little race, so who knows where that ends up going. In fact, this last year was 5 overtimes, and I know a lot of fans talked about it controversially. We're like, oh, why are we getting so many overtimes? It should not be like this. This is absolutely not the way we want it to be. It's not how we think it should be. And there was a lot of controversy, especially because Joey Logano was the one who ended up winning this past season. But it just goes to show that these cars really want it. And the new gen package has really been pushing to its limit. A lot of people have had issues with the package. I think it's been all right to an extent. Obviously, there's been some duds this season, but there's been some good ones. I think Nashville's going to throw up another fantastic race for us to be able to see. I'm looking forward to it. A lot of cars are looking for their first win this season, and 3 notable cars that I highlighted that could get their first win this weekend are Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, and Chase Briscoe. Chase Elliott, I think that he's a great driver. He obviously is a reigning champion in 2020. He hasn't really lived up to his form since then, but he's been consistent this season. He's been one of the highest placing drivers on average. He's towards the top end in points off consistency, off merit alone, and he's going to try to break the win duck. He's going to try to do what he can to really finish up there. Another guy that's in the same boat is Ryan Blaney, who's been even better than Chase Elliott. He's been fantastic, but he's had one major problem, and that's reliability. He's crashed out, had failures, everything this season, and that's led to him not being as far up in the points as he should be. But when he does finish, he finishes incredibly consistently. He might want to really get a win this weekend in Nashville to solidify a spot in the chase. He's been good. And speaking of Chase Briscoe, he's been great this season as well. This past weekend was on pole for the Coke 600, finished third. He's been finally getting it sorted. They got a new crew chief, if I remember correctly. So as a result of that, Chase Briscoe's been starting to see some new results, things going his way, and I think that that's going to be fun to see for him. So those are 3 cars to watch this weekend, but none of them are who I think is going to win. So let's get right into the qualifying race and predictions. So historically here off 1 lap speed, Kyle Larson's been fantastic. He's coming off the Indy 500 where he struggled, but I think he's going to be fast here, back into his car, back into things that he's comfortable before. And he was fast in the Coke 600 before he spun out. So I think on 1 lap pace for quali, I think Kyle Larson puts it on pole for this one. But we know that in NASCAR, the pole isn't everything. Who's going to have the best car? And my good surprise is who I think is going to win the race. I think it's going to be RFK's number 60, Ryan Preece. Now, Preece is a bit of an outfield shot for who I think is going to win this race. I know that is going to surprise some people. RFK's been struggling this year, but one guy who hasn't been struggling this year is Ryan Preece. Of all the RFK cars, yes, Buescher's been having issues with penalties and finishing. Brad Keselowski has been atrocious. But Ryan Preece is having a bit of a career year, and he's really showing out in that 60. And he currently sits 16th in points. Obviously, a win would be able to put him into a great position moving forward. And he's won here twice already in Nashville, granted in the Truck Series, but he's won twice already in Nashville. He has a high finish rate here as well. And I truly believe that if there's any weekend for an RFK car to win this season, it's going to be this weekend in Nashville, and it's going to be Ryan Preece. And I think they're going to do it. Race winner, good surprise, however you want to book it. Keep an eye for Ryan Preece to be in victory lane this coming weekend in Nashville. For a bad surprise, though, I'm going to go with William Byron. I think William Byron is not going to be able to live up to the hype that he's had this past couple weeks. He's been performing fantastically. He extended the championship lead. I don't know. I have a feeling in my gut that they're going to end up having some issues when it comes to the stops. I don't think they're going to be as fast this weekend. They're not going to be as consistent. I think the Chevys as a whole might struggle a bit. Granted, I said Kyle Larson on pole, but I think in just lap racing, I think the Chevys are going to struggle a bit more in comparison to the Fords, in comparison to the Toyotas. And, I think William Byron's just going to be one of those cars that gets collected later on, and they're just going to be stuck in the middle of the pack, and they're not going to be able to really push forward. So, bad surprise, I suppose, William Byron. But, hopefully he's able to prove me wrong. We'll see where that goes. And that's all, folks, for this week. I know it's been a bit of a shorter episode in comparison to usual, but there wasn't a lot of news to talk in between for these weekends. Expect a bit more content in terms of talking stories or throwbacks or anything like that. Once we're back from triple header weeks for this upcoming week, expect someone to join me on Let's Get Racing. My dear friend Colin Doyle, he's going to be joining me here on Let's Get Racing, so it's going to be the both of us. I'm looking forward to it. You guys should definitely look forward to it. So it's very, very exciting to see where this goes. With that being said, thank you so much for watching Let's Get Racing. I've been Julian Quintero Verano, and hopefully you have a fantastic race weekend, a fantastic weekend for you in general, and you're able to enjoy yourself. I'll see you when I see you.